This is the Inside Data Center podcast. We talk to the people who power the data center sector to give you insider info on everything happening in DC today. Here's your host, Andy Davis.
Welcome to the Inside Data Center podcast. Today I'm joined by Graham Harle, CEO, and Steve Kelly, Global Director, Data Centers and Mission Critical of Gleeds. Good morning, both.
Morning, Andy. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you both for coming on. Obviously, looking forward to talking about Gleeds and data centers. You know, that's what we're here for, but also to hear a little bit more about both of you and your journey into the industry. Before we go into all of that, just give the listeners a quick introduction of who you are and what your role is. Graham, shall we start with you?
Yeah, thanks. So Graham Harle, I'm the global CEO of Gleeds. I've been at Gleeds 29 years, so more or less man and boy in the business, and fantastic business to work in.
And Steve?
So I'm Steve Kelly. I'm the global sector lead for Gleeds. I've been in Gleeds 4 years right now. I'm loving every minute of it, to be fair.
Yeah, and as we were saying before we come along, very busy times for Gleeds right now and for all of us, but we'll go into that shortly when we cover off what you're up to. Always interesting to hear how you started your career and how you developed to where you are in the industry. Obviously, the reason for the podcast was largely to try and attract more people to the world of data centers. So it's good to hear how those in it sort of carried their journey through. So Graham, you mentioned you've been with Gleeds 29 years, which obviously is a long time for anyone in any career, but how did you start your career and how did you progress to where you are today?
Yeah, so I started my career 35 years ago, which seems an incredibly long time ago now. And I fell into quantity surveying, as it was at the time, or still is, just by chance. To be honest, I finished my school with my A-levels, and I wasn't that keen on going to full-time education because I was playing football at the time as well. But I wanted to do a degree. So I just looked at apprenticeship programs at the time and fell into quantity surveying, worked for a small little business in the West End of London, and thoroughly enjoyed it. I love being outside. I love being mobile. I love traveling. So for me, and I love economics, so it ticked all the boxes for me, and I'm so glad I made that decision because in my 35 years I've had the privilege of working with some amazing people in our business, wonderful clients and consultants around the world, delivering amazing projects. I'm still get incredibly excited and passionate about our industry and the sector. And the big thing for me is always around what we do to contribute to communities and society as a whole. So, and interestingly, 1989, 1990, when I came into the industry, one of my first projects I worked on as a trainee was a data center for a financial institution down in Bristol. So I had immediate exposure to the sector.
It always makes me laugh when you talk to a lot of people now and they think data centers are a new thing. And then when you have these conversations, you realize that they've obviously been around for a while, but they've also been part of the industry for a while. It's just that now the exposure is huge and obviously the importance has changed, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And Steve, yourself, how did you start your career and how did you end up in the world of data centers?
I thought I was going to be a history teacher at first when I came out of school, to be honest. And my uncle, who works for a big contractor, said, why don't you get into quantity surveying, which I'd never heard of. And a bit like Graham, tick a lot of boxes what I was interested in, both career-wise and where I wanted to go. So I studied in Liverpool as a QS, and I started off my journey as a graduate QS in Liverpool. And for reasons that will probably take longer than this podcast to explain, I moved abroad when I was roughly around about 23. And spent around 11 years working across, the whole of Eastern Europe and the Middle East and places like that. Diverse range of different projects, I suppose, stadia, industrial offices, and funny as Graham says there, did a lot of banks that had their own IT rooms and servers, and the early days of, I suppose, the initial kind of data centers in a way. Then around about 2016, I decided to return a bit closer into Western Europe. and I was looking for roles, and it wasn't really specific in terms of sector. And a data center project lead, QS role came up in the Netherlands. And at that point, to be honest, I had very little understanding of the data center sector. And with everything in this sector, it was fast. It was really, interesting. It was a great learning curve. It was continual change. It was challenging, and it still is, to be fair. I'm still learning, and that's kind of in a very, short nutshell. I went, to being into data centers roughly just about 10 years ago.
It's one of those industries, isn't it, where you always have to learn because it changes every few hours. I think I haven't released a podcast for a month. This is the first one I'll have released for a month, which is my biggest gap. And I was thinking earlier today that you could probably do a podcast on everything that's happened in that 1 month, and people would be surprised.
Yeah.
Interesting stories of how you both got in. Obviously, one from the graduate route, one from the apprentice route, which is always, again, fascinating to hear how people ended up in the sector. I think on the apprentice side, Graham, I'd be quite interested to hear your views on this. We work with the UTC, an apprenticeship scheme, and one of their biggest challenges is kind of sharing the career path that it can create. That it's not just an apprenticeship; it's what it leads to. So, what would your advice be to somebody that maybe is in that sort of apprentice route or looking to enter it, on how they can progress to where you've progressed today?
Well, one thing, in our industry, UK, Europe in particular, there's a lack of people coming into the construction and real estate sector. So, we're constantly trying to attract young people into our business. Every year we take on a huge number of graduates and apprentices, and we are, I'm very passionate about apprenticeship programs, certainly with the cost of university fees these days as well, and obviously with the government incentive of the apprenticeship levy. So we as a business, and I know many of our competitors and the contractors, are really strong advocates of attracting young people on apprenticeship programs, because there's a lot of people retiring from our industry in the near future. So there's certainly a lack of supply. I think the other big thing for me in terms of like my career path as well, we're talking about ticking all the boxes, that I mentioned I love economics, so that's obviously a massive part of what we do as quantity surveyors in particular, or cost managers. But also for me, I was passionate about traveling, and it really, as Steve was saying, classic example there. If you come into our industry, the potential to work abroad is amazing, and I strongly advocate anyone that comes into our industry to give working abroad a go, because it is fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think travel is a massive benefit for this sector, and I guess that brings us on to you, Steve. A living, breathing example of somebody that's experienced all that and led to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely love airports myself. But to be honest, I mean, everyone's unique in how they want to grow, and that's the thing that I think is really, really important for me. Having been abroad for 20 years, the different cultures, the different approaches to project delivery, and it fits really, really well with this sector. And it fits really well for me with Gleeds, because our global reach, but our local experience, has really helped us in this sector to expand. And I think, from my career, we look at the clients that we work for, we look at their global reach as well. You can go wherever you want to go. You can take your career wherever you want to take it with Gleeds, but also within this sector. To me, there's no limits. And this sector is all about connectivity and, growing and, changing how we work and how we live. So for me, when you kind of come across and do what I do as a QS, if you like to be mobile, if you like to be in a fast-paced industry, data centers is going to give you that real good basis, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think we've become much better at selling that story as well. The industry was notoriously bad for years because it was trying to be too much of a secret, and nobody really knew that all those benefits existed within the industry. I think you could argue that it's happened out of necessity rather than a strategy, but it's definitely now a sector that's positioned in a way that people that are maybe younger and in the industry are actually saying, I'd like to work in data centers. Actually, how do I become a data center cost manager or project manager, which just never happened before the last year or two.
Yeah.
And that brings us on to Gleeds. You mentioned a few times there, Steve, obviously, a large organization, a lot of localities, a lot of regions where you're operating in. Graham, do you want to give an overview of Gleeds and where you are today and what your offerings are?
Yeah, sure. So our business, we're 139 years old this year, so been around for a long time. We're turning over close to 300 million in revenue globally, out nearly 80 offices in 25 countries, and we're employing around about 3,000 people at present. I mean, our global footprint and our independence are extremely important to us, and interestingly to our clients when we get the feedback from our clients. And our services, we're focused on cost and commercial management, program and project management, asset management, and advisory services in the real estate sector. And one thing we continue to invest and embed at the moment is our digital products, and at the ESG agenda, we continue to invest and embed those products into our core services. So, yeah, great business. One thing I'm really proud of is that we continue to be recognised as a great place to work, and that's just been renewed again. So very proud of that. But we're also being recognised as a great place to work for mental health and well-being, and in particular career development. And that picks up on the point we were talking earlier about bringing graduates and apprentices into our business. And we're being recognised as a great place to work from that perspective. So, yeah, great business, really proud to work here.
And you must have seen a lot of changes in your 29 years as well across the business.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the biggest change obviously is we are global. When I joined 29 years ago, I think we had 2 offices overseas, Paris and in Braunschweig, just outside Berlin in Germany. And then, we've continued to grow overseas. I was, in 2007, I opened up our business in Egypt. So big office in Cairo now, over 120 people. So really proud to be involved with establishing that business there. But yeah, I mean, it's truly a global business now.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously that ties in with the data center sector as well. And I know that's one of your strengths within the industry, is that locality, as say the geography that you guys can cover. But yeah, when did you first move into the data center sector? And obviously, how's it evolved over that period? That might be one for you, Steve, or Graham, or you can both answer that one.
Yeah, I think, as Gleeds, I mean, we've been involved in the data center market for over 30 years. And certainly in my time at Gleeds, we've always had data center projects around the world, mainly UK and Europe, to be honest. And we had some data center experts, particularly down in our Southampton office. And we tended to work for the financial institutions and the IT companies. But we've really focused on growing that business during the last 5 years, and bringing Steve and some other people around Steve into our business has really been the catalyst for substantial growth for us in that sector.
Yeah, I mean, to build on that, I think businesses look at things normally in 5-year plans and things. If I look at our DC business, it's gone from strength to strength. Both in terms of our geographical spread of projects, but also our service offerings. We work with big hyperscalers, cloud providers, co-location providers, edge DCs. And I look at our portfolio that spans all the way from the Americas, EMEA to APAC. And, as Graham mentioned earlier on, a lot of our core traditional services, we're still very, very strong, and we are building that within data centers. But on top of that, things such as scheduling, energy procurement, health and safety, commissioning management are really now strong offerings for us within this sector. And for me personally, in terms of growth, I mean, it's a testament to the people we have in this business. It's not down to me, it's down to our teams, it's down to their knowledge, people we have with the local presence within the market. And Andy, you mentioned that earlier. For me, one of the big things that, attracted me to Gleeds is, you can walk around the world and you can walk into a Gleeds office, you can see real people that know the markets that they're in. We're not just PO boxes or shell entities, we're there in our markets with that experience. And data centers, I suppose, the future for me of construction delivery of data centers is the local teams, utilizing that kind of local market experience and best practice that we can give them from a data center side to help our clients do that. And Spain, Graham, you mentioned some international businesses. Spain's a great example for me, where We've got numerous data center projects that are delivered pretty much entirely by our Spanish and Iberian, staff with their local knowledge allied to our sector knowledge. And we've been in Spain, Graham, correct me if I'm wrong, for probably around about 20 or 30 years. And, that together is helping us meet, our clients, demands. And this sector has resource issues. I mean, Andy, you've probably heard this many, many times in terms of how we need to get people in. And it's not going to be solved by flying people in and out. It's solved by us training our staff locally to deliver the standards, I suppose our clients expect. And this year we launched our DC training program globally. I think, already possibly off the top of my head, around 150 people have completed that. That was established by, Kurt Luby, who's our director for EMEA and LATAM. It's a testament to how we're investing in our people, not just to bring from externally, but grow internally to meet our clients' needs. And the sector's really, really, it's buoyant for us, and it's strong in terms of how we're delivering it.
Yeah, geography is an interesting one. I think what we've seen over the last 2-3 years is that massive growth into new geographies, which brings with it various challenges from delivering the facilities, from construction, from management, everything that comes with it. You've got that, and you've also got the ESG sustainability push, which is pushing towards local supply chains, local talent, etc. And when I'm talking to whether it's a GC, a consultant, or a client, it's very much, we really would like local. It's just, it's not always there. So what you're doing from a training perspective is really important for you, but also for the industry, because you're able to upskill those local talent using the experience you've got across the business.
Yeah, exactly.
And one question again that a lot of people ask me is about, if you're coming into this industry, it is seen as a bit of a secret science by some people, and they're like, is it that much different from other real estate, or is it really as difficult as it looks like it is? I don't think we actually make it out to be difficult, but it does look difficult. What's your views on that, Graham? Do you think data centers is different, and how does it differ to other real estate?
Yeah, I think there is like you say, there's a perception in the market that it's a sector that is unique and different from others, but and I don't think it is completely. There are some key factors, and Steve could build on this in a minute, but it's the speed of the construction. It's that, the clients we've got, it's all about, they have to get it to market. The demand is obviously clearly there, and it's just, it's the speed and getting these facilities built. So that area is for me is one of the biggest that we see. And I think for me that there are solutions out there in terms of prefabrication, modularization. And Steve and I, when we were on a site last week in a data center project, and first phase of many, and that was one of the key topics of discussion. It's like, how can we get prefabrication and modularization embedded into the early stages of design to speed up the construction phase? So that's one key area that I think is different to like other sectors within construction and real estate. Mm-hmm. And Steve, you might want to build on that a bit more.
I very much agree. Time to market, getting power on dates, ensuring that our clients, who have tenants coming in, can meet the requirements that they have within a timely fashion. I think how it differs from other sectors, I've worked in many other sectors, and sectors change in terms of things, but the demand right now within data centers and the global demand for it. I mean, you can look, the biggest data center market in the world, in the United States, and the demand there is massive. But then you go over to APAC and you look in, even Thailand or in Malaysia, where you wouldn't necessarily look off the top of your head as a DC market just yet. The demand is ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And compared to possibly other sectors, due to that speed, one of the things we need to be really agile to, and this also comes into, how we train our people, but how we acquire talent, is how do we meet that demand? And it's not just consultants, it's contractors, it's clients, it's the whole supply chain right now, which needs to be geared up. And I think that really makes it stand out from other sectors in terms of its demand. Other sectors may have 10-year lifespans where projects last for 10 years and they can be quite slow burning. Data centers are really, really not. They're there, they start, and they happen, You know, if we get appointed on a Monday, we're starting on a Tuesday, and it goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one point that builds on that as well, I think, is what I'm seeing more now is collaboration. So collaboration between, whether it's between customers and consultants, or consultants and GCs, or other consultants and consultants, it doesn't matter. But to meet the demand, there has to be a level of collaboration, because there is more than enough for everyone, and equally there's too much for any individuals to deliver all of this. So you're seeing more of that now.
In terms of collaboration, yes. I think, look, this market is so big and vast, and you know, it's not slowing down anytime soon. Right to your point, Andy, you know, we need to start looking at this, sometimes not in terms of competition. We have competitors, but also we're all trying to get to the same goals as our clients, and not one individual company that I know of anyway can meet that demand everywhere. So, you know, there needs to be more knowledge sharing. There needs to be more partnering up, because we learn from, you know, our clients, we learn from our competitors, they learn from us. But ultimately, we're all in the same industry to deliver something that, if we can do it together and look how we can collaborate more, I think it's really, really important.
And Graham, on the sort of overarching view as well, it's always interesting when you're in a role where you're doing other sectors as well as data centers, because I think one thing the industry's never been that good at is learning from other industries. Again, getting much better now, it's opened up a little bit. But have you seen any ways you think the data center industry could learn from other sectors you're involved with, or have you seen examples of that happening?
Yeah, I mean, again, referring to a discussion we had with clients last week, you know, it's the sustainability agenda in particular that we really feel we can help our clients on, and actually getting these buildings to dealing with their carbon footprint, but also dealing with kind of LEED and BREEAM issues as well. And yeah, there was one particular example we were talking about last week in terms of cooling options for the data centers, which is also always a massive issue. And the project we were walking around last week, they've come up with an innovative solution on that, which uses seawater cooling. And we're doing that in, say, nuclear programs or in heavy industry. So there are solutions out there in other sectors that I think will greatly help the data center sector in terms of dealing with the sustainability issues. Also, as a business, we're heavily involved in clean energy solutions, so wind farms and solar farms. And again, you know, we're looking at some ways that we as a business and Steve and his team can really help bring some of that experience into the data center sector.
And Steve, have you started to see more of it happening now since you first entered this industry?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think in terms of, you know, the requirements that we have, and Andy, you said at the very beginning, you know, this sector changes on a weekly basis, yeah, and it does. It's incumbent on us as consultants to actually be as ahead of that as we can, to advise our clients. Sustainability, incredibly important. And I think how we work and advise our clients, you know, there's a lot of things in terms of data centers that we've seen over the years which are actually negative. But one of the things I think we should shout about more and more and more is the amount of stuff I see our clients doing within sustainability, within community engagement, and the investments that they're making to actually be sustainable, to actually make, you know, the world in terms of, you know, a better place in terms of that. I think data centers and us as consultants can help a lot more in building that profile to actually say that DCs are not just big energy hungry things that consume. They actually give back a lot. And we were looking at district heating that we're doing in certain schemes in the Netherlands and in the Nordics. Graham mentioned, you know, the seawater cooling in Spain. We're looking at using water to, you know, re-irrigate land and give it back to farmers and things like that. There's a lot of positive things we're doing in sustainability. Yes, we have to tackle, and we can use examples from other sectors. Gleeds energy, you know, is one of our big sectors, and I spend a lot of time talking to them to get innovative stuff. Graham mentioned nuclear and things like that, infrastructure as well. And I think, you know, for us, you know, the energy thing is what we need to tackle as well, and how we get to a sustainable point. You know, for example, generators. You know, I know a lot of people are looking at DCs without generators right now, but I'm still yet to find what that solution or hear what that actual solution is. But people are thinking about it, and there are people tasked. There are better engineers than I am. I'm a QS by background. You know, to look at them problems.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And there's a reason why you're seeing a lot of renewable organizations, major global organizations now looking at the data center industry. I think that tells you where the industry is going. It's just a case of when and where. Finally, on Gleeds, before we move on, what's next? You're obviously very busy at the moment. You're always building, but what's happening next?
Well, from a data center sector specific area, we are focused on continue to work with our wonderful clients, delivering their programs globally. We're focused on attracting the best talent in the market, which, as we all know, is a major challenge. But as Steve mentioned earlier, we've also developed our own internal training programs and bringing youngsters through. We've got mentoring programs, training programs. So we're very focused on developing the best talent. And you can see that from the results, great place to work for career development, etc. So we've got to develop the best talent internally, and they've got great mentors in Steve and his team, great experience. So we're very focused on that and delivering projects for our clients and really adding value from what we're seeing in other sectors. So for us, we're incredibly excited to be in the sector, and the work we're doing at the moment and delivering is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think the development piece, just touching, it's really important for retention as well. I think a lot of organisations look at attraction. How can we get people to join the organisation? But then they don't focus on retention. So what you're doing, it obviously helps from an attraction piece, but it also means you keep and develop the best talent in the industry as well.
100%, Andy. The retention and development piece is, we've got a great people development team here who are doing fantastic work in all of those areas. And I'm really proud when I see someone like Kurt, who's come in and developed all the way through like his career, and he's now a regional director. And so I'm really proud of the work we do in that area.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, I mean, within this sector, we're having, you've got people like who Graham alludes to there, but we're also having country sector leads now. And very much for empowering people to take control of the sectors that we have in their own regions and in their own countries. And we're finding that it's not just engagement in how the industry is going in data centers, how construction's going, but also for them to learn more. They can make decisions. I'm not here to be sitting telling people what to do. I'm there to empower people. And the more we can empower people in this industry, the more people feel that they can contribute. I think it's really, really important. And that's where growth comes. It comes from empowerment.
Yeah, and I mean, I had the privilege of being with our, our team in data center sector team in Lisbon last week, and they are exceptional. They are exceptional people, the talent, what they're doing, and the innovation. One thing I mentioned earlier about modular prefabrication is BIM, and really driving the BIM agenda. And the team, in terms of what they're delivering from a BIM perspective, is fantastic.
Excellent. And obviously, Gleeds, there's a lot happening, a lot going on. And I know you're doing great work, and you've got some great people. So you're obviously doing something very well. Before we close up, and I'll let you get on with your Friday, just a couple of more quick fire questions. We've covered quite a lot of challenges this industry faces already, but do you have any particular challenges that you think will be the main ones for this sector as we head into the second half of 2024?
I mean, from my point of view, and there's numerous, but the three main ones from different angles, I think we've talked quite a bit on resource. And that's just not resource in terms of people. I think that's resource in terms of the whole supply chain. And data centers will continue to consume a huge amount of supply chain, and that's going to grow. We need to understand how we address that, whether that's with the manufacturers, whether that's with, as Graham said, more prefab solutions which have been going on. The other one is energy, and again we touched on it briefly. But working in new locations, understanding how we can work with national grids, national providers, and engaging a lot more upstream with our clients and supporting our clients on that in terms of energy management and energy procurement. I think that's a big challenge, and that will continue to be a challenge. It won't just be addressed in 2024. It's going to continue for a while. And I think the third one, and I slightly talked about it earlier on, is, you know, community engagement and getting people on side. And I think data centers is getting better at being more transparent. I think, you know, some of our clients should be coming more out instead of it being a secretive thing. We're building this, we're giving back to the communities, we're creating jobs, we're, you know, heat energy back into your things and reducing bills. And, you know, really showing it as a force for good. And that's something we do quite a lot with our clients in certain locations now, is to build that profile. I think that's a challenge to change perception, because once the perception is completely changed, the sky's the limit, or probably data centers will be in space by then. But anyway,
Funny you should say that. There's an article in my newsletter today, 28th of June, we're recording this, about the EU discussing data centers in space. I know it's been talked about again, but I found an article earlier. So yeah, it's still on the agenda. Whether it'll ever happen in our lifetime, we shall see.
Yeah.
Graham, can I be the sector lead for Gleeds Galactic then at that point? Great.
Yeah.
You heard it here
It'll be
first.
part of your career development plan, Steve.
Yeah, that's fine. I can hand data centers to Kurt and I'll take the Galactic role. Yeah, that was
There's a few jokes in there about sending people to space, but I think we'll leave it there. Graham, anything else you'd like to add on the challenges? I know, again, you've covered quite a lot in the conversation already.
No, I'm with Steve. You know, in terms of the challenges, it's going to be a resource one. You know, you look at the exponential growth in the use of digital, AI, etc. You know, it's almost like, where is this industry going to go? You know, how big is it? I was with someone at the weekend who lays fiber optic cables across the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, and I look at what they're doing and developing, and you kind of think, wow, there's just going to be so much more data flows on these fiber optic cables. And so I just see exponential growth in the sector. So we've got to, as an industry, because there's a finite amount of resource, we've got to develop new and better technologies to build these data centers. So that for me is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And we got half an hour in before we mentioned AI, which I think is an actual record for the podcast. So well done, both of you, for not bringing it up earlier. Two final questions before we close up. If you could ask everyone in the sector to start or stop doing one thing, what would it be?
I think, from my point of view, in terms of resource, I'd stop putting hard requirements on, you know, people joining the sector. You know, I see so many times someone needs to have 10 years experience in data centers. I didn't. I had zero experience 10 years ago in data centers. And, you know, back to the thing, there's so many other sectors where you can replicate, you know, the same skill sets. And if you have that skill set, you can learn data centers, like you can learn life sciences, like you can learn nuclear and infrastructure. And I think we need to stop that. You know, and I suppose it's something we need to start doing is, I always thought about this, a universal set of acronyms, because I'm getting tired of learning new ones every year. and you know, we can get that sorted and we can take the lead on that one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Steve. And I think the other thing for me, Andy, just building on that, you know, the hard requirements for people, it's going back to what we were talking about earlier about the sector coming together to really help with the training and development of people and making it attractive to people. And I think that's, you know, a key challenge and something the sectors should start doing more.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with that, it's about marketing it and creating it to the target audience as well. I think one thing we're not very good at is marketing towards that entry-level generation, which is part of the concept, no plug for Data Center Club, trying to link it with Fight Club and make it a bit more of a, you know, an attractive proposition for people to understand that we're not all tech geniuses or engineering geniuses. You know, there's a wide variety of people in this industry. So yeah, both real good points. Final question. If you could give one piece of advice to anyone looking to work in the sector, what would it be?
I suppose my initial thing was be excited. You know, for me, and this is my own personal statement, I think this is the fastest growing sector in construction globally. You know, you're working with household names, people that you hear of on the TV all the time, the products that you use. And it's back to the original point. I think we need to do more of this, understand where this sector can take you in your career. Both in, you know, how you can develop, you know, up and also locationally. You know, we talked about one of our regional directors, Kurt, earlier on. You know, Kurt's been working with me since he graduated and now he's a regional director. And for me, if there's ever a story there to tell, right, he's a very good example of that. And you know, age isn't a barrier. You know, if you're enthusiastic, you know, and you want to work in this industry, I mean, come and have a chat with Graham and Gleeds and me, because we'd be happy to introduce you and promote it.
Yeah, and again, I'm just building on that. You know, what the one piece of advice I would give is what I said at the very start of this podcast about using it as it's a fantastic sector. Use it as a real kind of springboard to launch your career, learn, and the most important thing, travel. Because one thing we see in obviously the data center sector is a lot of people that are very mobile globally. And you can use it, the sector, once you've got that experience, to travel and see some wonderful places, experience different cultures. And I think that's, you know, it's a great opportunity for people to really see the world.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting because in a conversation I was having yesterday around education and apprenticeships, they were saying that their biggest challenge is retention within apprenticeships. And my point was that's because they don't know where it can take you. They see something, a bright light over there, and they aim for that bright light rather than the one that's actually ahead of them. If they just can see people like both of you and like others in the industry that have been successful, developed careers, and the travel, the opportunity, the growth. So that's on us, I think, to paint that picture.
Yeah, agreed.
Thanks both for your time. Really enjoyed that chat. We could go into much more detail, but obviously we won't. It'll become more of a documentary than a podcast. But really appreciate it. Where can people get hold of you if they want to talk to you, learn more about Gleeds, or anything that they'd like to ask?
So to get a hold of me, graham.harle@gleeds.com. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to get in contact with me, please do so.
Yeah, very much the same, steve.kelly@gleeds.com. Also on LinkedIn, you know, or through our website. Yeah,
and we'll put the website in the show notes when we release it. We won't put your emails in it just in case you get bombarded. But we'll put the show notes we'll put the website in the show notes. But thanks both for your time. Enjoy your weekends. We'll catch up again in the future, and obviously keep up the good work.
Super. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.